The Senate will come back to order. The Senate will come back to order. Please make your way to the chamber. We'll begin to take up the Senate's business shortly. The chair is looking for the senator from the 53rd to enter the chamber and to present a measure. If you've seen the senator from the 53rd, let him know we're looking for him in the chamber. Mr. Secretary, can you please read a report of a committee?
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Government Operations has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 873 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Anderson of the 24th District, Chair. That completes the order.
And the senator from the 53rd has made his way to the chamber. Thank you, sir. It's your game. We're just playing it. For what purpose does the senator from the 53rd rise?
Mr. President, been working with the House members all year to make sure they understood how important 375 was. So I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 375.
I never thought you'd ask. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
Senate Bill 375 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 7 of Chapter 12, Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to sale and distribution to or possession by minors of cigarettes and tobacco-related products and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House has offered the following substitute to Senate Bill 375, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated, relating to crimes and offenses so as to increase the age of individuals to which the sale or distribution of tobacco, cigarettes, tobacco-related objects, alternative nicotine products, and vapor products is prohibited and for other purposes. That completes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 53rd to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is House Bill 375, and this is the vaping bill that we passed out of here a few months ago, actually. And it was focused on keeping vaping off of school property. If you're picking your child up, you couldn't vape. If you did, you get caught and everything could be confiscated. Children were not to vape, and if there's someone supplying them vaping material, they would be in big, big trouble. Well, the House has expanded a little bit, and I do have a physical note, Senator from the 48th. And I do want the senator from the 27th to know, and thank him for talking to me and working with me on this. This is also illegal in a school zone. And that's not the road in front of the school. That's actually on school property. So again, to keep vaping material and influence off of school property regarding vaping. So what we have here is an excise funds that is now on vaping products. Now, how does that compare to tobacco? Well, this does not excel or expand or do anything with tobacco. And excise tax is based on the weight of the tobacco, actually, so in ounces. And this is done in milliliters to have a different perspective because you're having air, vaping things. So that's where we are here. Now I can read you a lot of stuff, and I will. The fiscal one-time note is $200,000 for a cost of equipment to test and all that stuff. But the cost of about a year will result in about $1 million first year, revenue between $10 and $14 million. Now, eventually, I hope that goes to health care, but let's start it off here. Don't you agree, Senator from the 48th? Give me one of these, okay. The purpose, of course, is to curb youth in this bill having easy access to provide vaping materials and hurdles for adults too as well. This will replace 18 until now 21. The federal government recognizes this as 21 years of age. We were at 18 before we started this direction to help take vaping material away from youth. And you know yourself, vaping was created to keep people off of tobacco, but it has become its own industry. Good or bad, right or wrong, it has. And for those who smoke a lot. This has curbed that. For those kids that's starting up, we want to curb that even more. Mr. President, I'd be delighted to answer any question, but the crux
Chair
of the
recognizes the senator from the 45th for a question.
Mr. Chairman, would you please
bill.
yield?
Yes, ma'am, be honored to.
Mr. Chairman, is it not true in the state of Georgia that we have a group called Vaping Attention to Prevention that was started by teenagers, and they have become renowned across the United States as teenagers against vaping and prevention? Is that not true?
That is true, and what an outstanding group that is, that youth will create something like that. And I'd like to thank you and also the current chair of Health and Human Services for all you do and have done to help our youth and on our medical side to keep these harmful products away from them.
Chair recognizes your roommate, the senator from the 50th, for a question.
Do I have to start barking?
Will the senator yield for a question?
Yes.
This is a serious question. I really haven't had time to look at this, but I have complete confidence in you. But are there any tax implications in this bill, raising any taxes on vaping or tobacco? Is that included in this legislation?
Absolutely not. No taxes on tobacco. Even though there's, I'd say that's coming probably next session, but no increase of tobacco tax, no additional taxes on anything except excise funds from vaping products.
Would you yield for one more question?
I would dance for you if you needed me to.
No. Well, tell me just the major things that this bill does. Then, is it changing the age from 18 to 21, or
Yes.
what's it doing?
It is 18 to 21. That's the federal guidelines. We have adopted it here.
You have a question. The chair recognizes the senator from the 31st.
Does the senator yield?
Of course, the man from Bremen.
Thank you. You referred at least a couple of times to excise funds, but you said there were no taxes in this. Is there a difference between excise funds and excise taxes?
Well, I was talking about taxes on tobacco.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
Is there, I looked through the bill, and
Yes, sir.
it's lengthy. I didn't get to digest it all. So these milligrams that you were talking about, is that milligrams of nicotine or milligrams of what?
It's a substance within the vaping item that creates the vape or the air. I don't know what you call it, but it's the inside of the vaping tool.
So it's not necessarily milligrams of nicotine, it's
That's
just
right.
milligrams of juice.
That's right. Yeah, that's
So
good.
if that juice had THC in it, it would still be taxed the same way.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Juice. That's Northwest Georgia.
You have one more question. Do you continue to yield?
I would, Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 1st.
Does the senator yield?
Of course.
Isn't it true that the healthcare community, in particular, are very interested in this bill? Number one.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And isn't it also true that this would bring the vaping industry into parity with the tobacco and cigarette industry?
Thank you for bringing that up, and that's the way to contain this is to be in parity with the tobacco industry, not higher, but in parity with that, so we have both.
Could I have a
equally.
follow-up there, Mr.
Please
Chairman?
do. Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that this is the right thing to do for the state of Georgia when it comes to smoking and vaping and that industry in general? Because we're trying to discourage 18-year-olds until they get to be more of a mature age. And I spoke in the well on this earlier about the maturity of the brain. And isn't it true that the later you delay the substance abuse disorder relating to nicotine addiction, the better off we all are?
Absolutely, for your health wise, and I know I'm a model of happy, healthy guy here. I've actually never smoked in my life except when I was 5 years old. Back then, it was pretty common for people to smoke, and I've already committed you there, Senator from 27th, before you came in. That my mother was smoking cigarettes. She put it down the ashtray. Been 5 years old. I picked it up and took a whatever you call a puff, and thought I was going to die. And I turned green, and I never did that again. So, but some of us have other things. I have food that is probably my bad thing. But thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for your work on medical issues, along with many others in this beautiful chamber. Mr. Chairman,
You have no more questions.
I appreciate your vote on this. Thank you.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion? The chair sees none. The senator from the 53rd has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 375. All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? I got a thumbs up in the hallway. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 45, the nays are 8, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 375. Chair recognizes the senator from the 51st for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate agrees to the House substitute to Senate Bill 336.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
Senate Bill 336 by Senator Gucci of the 51st and others. Bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 2 of Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to prestige license plates and special plates for certain persons and vehicles. So it's to expand eligibility for certain members of the military to receive special license plates and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House has offered the following substitute to Senate Bill 336, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 2 of Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to prestige license plates and special plates for certain persons and vehicles so as to expand eligibility for certain members of the military to receive special license plates and for other purposes. That completes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 51st to speak to his motion. For what purpose does the senator from the 48th rise? State your inquiry.
Would now be the appropriate time to recuse myself from this vote?
Let me check with the secretary. This is the appropriate time, Senator?
Thank you, Mr. President. Under the rules, I officially move to disqualify myself from this vote because I am a recipient of some of the medals listed, and my husband is an Air Army Ranger. Therefore, I will recuse myself from this vote.
Senator from the 48th is asked to be excused from this vote. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and you're excused.
Mr. President, senators, thank you for giving me this chance to come back up here. And I'd like to thank the senator from the 48th, the senator from the 30th, and there was a couple others who have served our country and who have already earned some of the medals that are mentioned in this piece of legislation. This bill went over to the House. It passed with an amendment. The only amendment was, you'll see on section 3, and they added an additional tag for tennis players. So that's the only change to the bill, is they added an additional tag. Mr. President, I'll yield the well for any questions.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion? The chair sees none. Senator from the 51st has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 336. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Hallways clear. Mr. Secretary, close the machine. On the passage of the motion, the yeas are 50, the nays are 1. The Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 336. Chair recognizes the senator from the 49th.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute for S.R. 844.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
Senate Resolution 844 by Senator Miller and others, honoring the life of Deputy Nicholas Blaine Dixon and dedicating a bridge in his memory and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers following substitute to SR Senate Resolution 844, dedicating certain portions of the state highway system to provide for an effective date to repeal conflicting laws and for other purposes. That completes the order.
Chair recognizes the pro tem to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was about to call him Mr. Price. Thank you, Mr. President. As I have shared with our chairman of our Transportation Committee and Senate Transportation Committee on many occasions, I'm very grateful that he would name this bill for Deputy Blaine Dixon, who died in service to Hall County on July 8th, 2019. He was a graduate of North Hall High School, a fine individual and a very respected man in our community, and a loving father and a husband. This is the annual road naming bill, and it's got all your various roads throughout the state. And as I have expressed also to our transportation chairman, I think it's always fitting that we think about those that have given the ultimate price. And again, I thank him for naming this bill for Deputy Dixon. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I will yield the well.
You have a question. Chair recognizes the senator from the 31st.
Does the pro tem yield?
Certainly to my friend from the 31st, a gentleman of great knowledge.
I
Keen
tried to read
intellect.
these bills and I got hung up in here. If you could help me out, would you read for this body lines 272 through lines 275?
Gentleman from the 31st is going out in a blaze of glory, isn't he? Whereas a renowned opera singer, Miss Norman, performed Deborah la Africana les Arceblios in Deutsche Oberberlin Opera Company. Anything else?
Yes, sir. I'm not sure I was keeping up with you, but that sounded like two lines. You've got 274 and 275 to go.
Certainly, it will be my pleasure, the gentleman from the 31st. 274?
Yes, sir. You need me to
Whereas
mark 'em
in
off for you?
1982, she performed Operias Rex, Adira, Aeneas, with the opera company of the City of Brotherly Love.
Senator, you have earned my vote.
Senator, that speaks volumes.
Mr.
Do you
President,
continue to yield?
I'm having so much fun, why not?
Chair recognizes the majority leader for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
Did you confirm that the senator from the 31st was going to give you a yes vote? He just said a vote.
Oh, me. That's a great point, Mr. Leader. Anything else, Mr. President?
Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, yield.
Certainly to my friend of great knowledge in the
I had
transportation
a,
yield, realm and from
just-
North Fulton,
well,
Cherokee
what-
County. He's such a gentleman of honor and distinction, yes, and
Wanted to get your attention.
well, I can't see him. I got a glare off the top of his head.
I can't see either of you.
Never argue with a man with a microphone. Yes, sir.
well, I had one in here for Mr. Richard Jackson, and I don't see it. And I want to quickly look for it before we vote on this, unless you can show
Thank
me
you,
where it's
Mr.
at.
Chairman. I have not perused it for Mr. Jackson. It's not in here. It says the senator from the 48th.
It was in there when we sent it over there.
Mr. President, I may like to
Mr. President,
recede and
we need to table this until we find out. If not, I would like to add that back in. It was in there when we sent it over.
I would be happy to make the motion to table the bill, but we have to check with Secretary of Senate as to the procedural matter. We could rescind, or we could. Oh yeah, Mr. Chairman, I realize I don't answer questions from the well, but would there be a companion bill? Would there be a companion bill? Is it possibly in the other bill?
You have no more questions. We'll take a moment up here at the rostrum and talk about the options available. This is a motion, so you can't table a motion, so we've got to walk through it. Stand by. For what purpose does the pro tem rise?
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to withdraw my motion.
The pro tem has asked for unanimous consent that his motion be withdrawn. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and the motion is withdrawn. Chair recognizes the senator from the 17th for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 393.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
Senate Bill 393 by Senator Strickland, the 17th, and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 2 of Chapter 3 of Title 20 and Chapter 3 of Title 35 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the university system and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, respectively, so as to revise the duties and powers of certain law enforcement officers and agencies and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 393, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 35 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation so as to codify the legal division of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, to expand the jurisdiction of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation in regards to street gang terrorism and prevention and for other purposes. That completes the order.
Better double check that bill, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 17th to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, I bring to you Senate Bill 393. As you may recall, this is a bill we took up back in February that creates a legal division for the GBI and allows the GBI to send attorneys that have specialized training in certain areas of law, such as human trafficking prosecution, to work under local prosecutors to assist with prosecution of cases around our state. The House took out the Attorney General from this bill. Attorney General's office asked to be removed. They could not legally have someone from this legal division working as a SAG underneath the Attorney General's office. That's the only change that was made in the House. I'm happy to take any questions.
You have no questions.
I ask for your favorable consideration.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion? The chair sees none. The senator from the 17th has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 393. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? The hallway's giving me a thumbs up. Mr. Secretary, please lock the machine. On the passage of the motion, the yeas are 38, the nays are 13, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 393. For what purpose does the senator from the 14th rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate recede from its amendment to House Bill 914.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
House Bill 914, by Representative Clark of the 147th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to professions and businesses so as to provide for military spouses licensed in other states to practice certain professions and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate had offered the following amendment: amend House Bill 914 by changing provisions related to certain professions in the state by adding after "in the state" on line 3 the following: to remove certain crematory requirements and retorts and to provide for an alternative cremation process and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 14th to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. We passed ours out over to the House unanimously. When this bill came over, 914, it was identical. There was an amendment added from the senator from the 31st. We passed that out. I'm asking that we recede back to our original position on it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 31st to speak to the motion.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been very generous with me. We've passed this measure, counting the amendment that we put on this bill, twice. The House is playing the normal House games. And when the original bill that we passed out of here, Senate Bill 296, went to committee, I was agreeable to all the work that the committee did over there, and the bill got out of committee. There's a little fight going on amongst the House members. There's seemingly one funeral director over there that's got a friend that has a concern that this might be competition. And that particular member apparently has paid his dues. He's done what the Speaker has asked him to do, and he's getting rewarded. So I would ask this body, no disrespect to the senator from the 14th, he and I have been friends, he and I will remain to be friends, but I would ask this body to vote against the amendment to recede from the Senate amendment, the motion to recede from the Senate amendment, and support me in this measure. It is ridiculous that we would let these little petty things get involved in doing the work that we have to do. And, you know, the House could pass Senate Bill 296. But apparently I don't follow the rules or the unwritten rules. I don't know how to shine shoes. I don't know what the problem is, but I would ask for you to stand strong, support me on this amendment, and let's let the House do the work for the people's business. So I would ask that you vote against the motion to recede from the Senate amendment. Thank you.
You have a question?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes the minority leader for a question.
Senator Yield.
I certainly do.
So, Senator, is it not true that you just mentioned that there was another bill, separate bill, that this measure was on? And are you not concerned that putting it on here is a separate subject matter and will actually have the risk of causing the underlying bill to be struck down in court because of the two different subject matters?
I don't have that fear. They're both, I think it's Title 43. They're both dealing with professional corporations and licenses. I do not believe that that would be a concern. And I think, Senator, Mr. Leader, you've seen me. I have argued for constitutionality for years down here. I could say decades. So I don't have that concern, but I appreciate you doing that. I wish you were going to be here longer to advocate for the Constitution when I'm gone.
Thank you, Senator. Just a further question. although you feel there's no issue, is it not true that some people may think that a bill about military license plates and another bill that permits a type of cremation without a retort, such as aquafication crematories, may be separate subject matters and good people could disagree on that matter?
One thing I've learned down here, everybody's got at least one opinion. Most folks have got a bunch of them. But I would ask for you to support the Senate's position on this bill. And, you know, there's no disrespect to those who don't deserve it. You know, there's been things said that I have had conversations, and I've done this and I've done that, and I've not had those conversations. But the truth is sometimes hard to find down here.
You have no more questions.
Thank you. I urge a no vote on this motion.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask that we vote yes for this measure. I think that we have a lot of heroes that had served their country and fought alongside our men at arms, men and women at arms, and they now live here. They're now citizens of this country, and they're looking to receive that honor and have that little bit of special treatment, and they've earned it. They fought honorably, and I would ask for you to vote yes to recede from the House position. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Senators yielded the well. The chair recognizes the senator from the 48th to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't think I was going to be rising again, but yes, this does call for me to rise as a member of the Veteran Affairs Committee who worked very hard on this legislation. I respectfully disagree with the senator from the 31st interpretation, and you may recall I challenged the multiple subject matter pieces. I do believe that if we do not recede on this position, there is a constitutionality problem. Moreover, it jeopardizes a bill that favors veterans and the allies of veterans who have fought for this country. And we in our committee worked very hard on this bill, and it should not be jeopardized in this manner. I respectfully ask that you vote to recede from our position. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion? Chair recognizes the senator from the 14th to close debate on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, respect the senator from the 31st and wish him well. Senators, this is very important to the military families. As we've talked before, we've had military families deployed to our state, and many times they have to leave their family members behind because of their professional license. This allows the spouses of those military families to be able to have reciprocity on the licenses. We unanimously passed my bill out. We know politics happens. We're on day 40. My bill is held up. The representative's bill mirrors that. We put an amendment on it that I was okay with, but we can't play politics with the military families that are coming to our state. So I respectfully ask that you support me as we recede back to the original position. Thank you, Mr. President.
The senator from the 14th has moved that the Senate recede from its amendment to House Bill 914. All those in favor of the motion vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? We got one more coming in the hallway. All senators voted. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the motion, the yeas are 41, the nays are 10, and the Senate has receded from its amendment to House Bill 914. Welcome back to the chamber, Senator. Isn't there a budget to be working on somewhere? Okay. Oh, that's right. Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate agree, even though it's not circled, to the House substitute to SB 413 as amended by the Senate.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
Senate Bill 413 by Senator Martin of the 9th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 67A of Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to conflicts of interest in zoning actions so as to expand the definition of the term applicant. Mr. President, the House offers the following amendment to Senate Bill 413, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to state government so as to allow public hearings to be held by teleconference in emergency conditions. Mr. President, Senator Martin of the 9th offers the following amendment to the House substitute to Senate Bill 413 by inserting after quote 2 on line 1, quote, amend Chapter 67A of Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to conflicts of interest in zoning actions so as to revise the definition of the term applicant and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th to speak to his motion. Hold up 1 second, Senator. We still have important business before us. If I could ask all senators to take your conversations off the Senate chamber floor and allow the senator in the well to present the measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I come to present, to speak to the motion. SB 413 originally added transparency to the zoning process to make sure that applicants are showing the campaign contributions they are giving, that the landowner, the property owner would be included in that definition of an applicant. It came back, the House stripped that out and used it as a vehicle. So what we have done is we have reinserted the zoning transparency piece with a little language that makes the House a little more happy, makes it work for them. But then also we have what they sent back over to us was a bill that will allow our local governing authorities, cities and our counties to be able to, when the next time that there's a state of emergency, it will allow them to hold zoning meetings via teleconference like they're doing now. So this is it was done by executive order this time. We're codifying the executive order to make sure they have that ability next time around on if there's a state of emergency. Mr. President, I'll yield for any questions.
You have no questions.
I ask for your favorable consideration. I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for the bill or the amendment? The chair sees none. Senator from the 9th has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 413 as amended by the Senate. All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the motion, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0. And the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 413 as amended by the Senate. All right, the Senate is going to stand in recess for 30 minutes. Senate is going to stand in recess for 30 minutes. We'll come back to order at 4 o'clock-ish. Ish, that's a technical term. Ish, 4-ish. Senate will stand at ease.